Well, thank you. Yes, it does fall to me to introduce the Minister for Economy, Trade and Industry of Japan, Hagiuda. But of course, as you know, first, all of us have expressed during this conference to our visiting Japanese friends in particular, our condolences on the shocking news from last week. When I heard the news last week, as we all did, many things ran through my mind, like all of us, the shock and surprise, the disappointment and the mourning. And then my mind did also turn to the fact that now our Quad Ministers meeting to occur this week would probably not happen, that I foresaw that it was probably impossible for our Japanese colleague to join us. And yet here he is today. And we've expressed to our Japanese friends, as I said, condolences on different occasions. But personally, to Minister Hagiuda, you might not be aware that he was a personal friend of Prime Minister Abe, Deputy Chief of his Cabinet, a long-standing member of his Cabinet and a close and valued and trusted advisor. And Hagiuda-san, you do us huge honour by your presence today to leave Abe-san's funeral and to fly straight here is something which we would not have expected, and we're deeply honoured that you did so. Most people in this room would not have met. Most people in this room would not have met Shinzo Abe, but you can be assured that he touched the hearts of so many whom he did not meet around the world. Prime Minister Abe once said that it's the responsibility of all in politics to think about the peace, prosperity and future not of only their own countries and not only their own regions, but their entire world. And he lived that as well. And that is, I think, why he's being mourned so deeply across the world, not just in Japan. We regard him as a friend of Australia. I met him on his visit to Australia in 2014. But I've been speaking to our colleague, the Indian Minister, who told you that he's a friend of India, and so many countries around the world regarded him as a statesman and a friend. And you made the point, sir, in our Quad Energy Ministers meeting, which just finished, that the Quad was something very close to Shinzo Abe, that the friendship with Australia and India and the United States was something very important to him, and it was your intention to honour him by coming to our Quad meeting. And we thank you for it, and thank you for the honour you're doing us. And it's an indication of the importance of the topics that we are discussing today. So, friends, would you join me in welcoming and showing our respect and honour to Hagiuda-san, and thank you for your presence today.
防衛気候変動エネルギー大臣の本フォーラムの開催を進めたリーダーシップに深く敬意を表します。また、安倍元総理の逝去を受けて、各国の皆さん、各方面から心温まる弔意メッセージを頂戴しており、この場を借りて厚く御礼を申し上げたいと思います。
Minister Bowen for Climate Change and Energy, may I show my utmost respect for Your Excellency's leadership in holding this forum. And we have been receiving a lot of kind condolence messages for our former Prime Minister of Japan, Mr. Abe, for which I would like to utilize this opportunity to thank everyone.
私が前回シドニーにお邪魔をしたのは、安倍総理の下で私が官房副長官を務めてきた時でした。国内では安倍総理と最も近い政治家の一人というふうに皆さんに知っていただいておりまして、今回の逝去は私にとって本当に断腸の思いでございました。
Well, the last time I visited Australia, or say Sydney, was a time when I used to be the deputy, the chief of cabinet, back in the day when Mr. Abe used to be the prime minister. And in Japan, I was known to be one of the closest, the politician of Mr. Abe. And this incident that have occurred at this time was quite shocking and unfortunate for me.
喪に服したいという気持ちもありましたが、まさしくクアッドという枠組みは安倍元総理が在任中に提言し、米国、オーストラリア、インドの皆さんのご協力をいただいたものでありますので、この大切な会議に多分安倍さんは早く行ってこいと、こういう声が聞こえた気がしまして、 日本を立ってオーストラリアにお邪魔をしました。
I once thought of staying in Japan in order to pay a moment of silence for Mr. Abe, but indeed the Quad was this vision which was being proposed by Mr. Abe when he used to be a prime minister. It seemed as if Mr. Abe pushed me that I should move on and visit Australia. And I knew that the Quad was being realized thanks to all the supports from three countries. Therefore, I decided to come here and join everyone.
改めて皆さんからの弔意に感謝を申し上げるとともに、このレガシーをしっかりとですね、我々日本とオーストラリア、そして友好国としっかりつなげていくことを改めてお誓い申し上げたいと思います。
So I would like to once again thank everyone for the warm message of condolence, and at the same time I would like to make sure that I will be able to continuously hold up to his legacy.
世界のエネルギー市場はウクライナ情勢を受け危機の最中にあります。この危機への対応は喫緊の課題です。カーボンニュートラルの実現に向け、我々はクリーンエネルギートランジッションに最大限取り組んでいく必要がありますが、そのためにもエネルギー市場の安定は必須です。エネルギー源の多様化を進め、安定供給を確保しつつ、カーボンニュートラルの両立を図ることが重要であると考えています。本日はこの実現に向けた日本の取り組みを紹介させてください。
Well, due to the situation in Ukraine, the world's energy market is in the middle of crisis now, and response to the crisis is urgently needed. We must pay our utmost effort for clean energy transitions to realize carbon neutrality, and stability of energy market would be a prerequisite. I feel it is critical that we diversify the energy source and secure stable supply, while realizing carbon neutrality concurrently. Today, I would like to present you with some of the relevant initiatives being led by Japan.
日本は人類喫緊の課題である気候変動問題に対応するため、2050年カーボンニュートラル、2030年温室効果ガス 46% 削減の実現に全力で取り組みます。クリーンエネルギー中心の経済、社会、産業構造への転換、いわゆるグリーントランスフォーメーションを進めてまいります。
And to respond to the climate change, which is a pressing challenge for us mankind, Japan pays its utmost effort to realize carbon neutrality in 2050 and 46% GHG reduction in 2030. We will proceed with transformation of economy, society, and industry by placing clean energy at the center. In other words, green transformation.
この実現には日本全体で今後10年間において官民協調で150兆円規模の投資が必要となります。クリーンエネルギー戦略の中間整理では、この投資を引き出すための政府対応の骨格を示しました。この夏以降に立ち上げる GX 実行会議において、この具体化を政府全体で図ってまいります。
For that to take place, under government and private sector cooperation, investment of around 150 trillion yen throughout Japan in the next 10 years will be required. Under our interim report of our clean energy strategy, we show the policy framework for that investment. Ways to realize that will be consulted in a government-wide manner at the GX Executive Committee to be launched in this summer or later.
他方で2030年に向けては2050年を見据え徹底した省エネ・再エネの最大限導入、安全最優先の原発再稼働などを進めていきます。火力については2050年に向けて水素火力、アンモニア火力の実現に挑戦します。このため2030年までに水素混焼やアンモニア混焼の導入普及を進めます。
On the other hand, while keeping our eyes on year 2050, towards 2030, we will thoroughly proceed with energy efficiency, maximum introduction of renewables, and restart of nuclear power plants with safety at our highest priority. As for thermal power generation, towards 2050, we will take on a challenge to realize hydrogen thermal power and ammonia-fired thermal power by introducing and disseminating hydrogen co-combustion and ammonia co-combustion by 2030.
また電気自動車などに必要となる重要鉱物のサプライチェーンの強化のため、ジョグメックを通じたリスクマネー支援により調達源の多様化を加速いたします。
and at the same time to enhance critical mineral supply chain necessary for things such as electric vehicles. We will accelerate diversification of financing source by risk money support through JOGMEC.
しかしながらこうした日本の取り組みだけでは世界全体のカーボンニュートラルを実現することはできません。このため私は次の3点が重要と考えます。
Though the Japanese initiatives alone cannot realize carbon neutrality of the world, therefore the following 3 points I think are critical.
第一にカーボンニュートラルに向けた道筋は一つではなく、各国の実情に応じたさまざまな道筋があるということです。
One, there is not only one, but a variety of paths towards carbon neutrality in ways that fit each country's situation.
エネルギー市場をめぐる状況は各国さまざまです。アジアではエネルギー需要の増加が見込まれる一方で、再エネのポテンシャルは限定的です。各国の実情を踏まえた幅広いエネルギー源や技術を活用した多様かつ現実的なアプローチを追求する必要があります。
Situations surrounding energy market differ by countries. Energy demand is expected to grow in Asia, while potential of renewables is limited. A
第二に
realistic and diverse approach that utilizes broad energy sources and technologies must be taken based on each country's situation.
第二にイノベーションの創出です。エネルギーの安定供給を確保しつつ、カーボンニュートラルを実現するには現在、研究開発段階の技術の実用化が必要です。
Second is creating innovation. Commercialization of technologies currently at R&D stage is necessary to realize carbon neutrality while securing stable energy supply at the same time.
このため日本では将来の成長につながる14の重要分野を定め、社会実装を見据えて水素やアンモニアの燃焼技術、浮体式洋上風力、次世代太陽光電池等の技術開発に取り組んでいます。
Therefore, Japan designated 14 critical fields that are linked to future growth, such as combustion of pure hydrogen and ammonia, floating offshore wind, and next-generation photovoltaic cells. With an aim to utilize them in the society, we are working on developing those technologies.
第3に先進国だけではなく、対排出国や今後排出が大幅に増加することが見込まれるアジア諸国をはじめ、世界全体で取り組みを進めることです。
The third point is that we must engage not only developed countries, but the whole world, including major emission countries and Asian nations, where a significant emission increase is expected.
日本はアジアの新興国のトランジッションに向け、アジアゼロエミッション共同体構想やアジアエネルギートランジッションイニシアチブ 80を通じ、幅広い支援を提供してまいります。
For a transition of emerging Asian countries, Japan will provide broad support through Asia Zero Emissions Community Vision and AETI, also known as Asia Energy Transition Initiative.
具体的には ASEAN 各国のカーボンニュートラルに向けたロードマップの策定を支援しており、今後インドなどにも拡大する予定です。また、アジアの実情を踏まえたトランジッションに対してファイナンス支援する際の考え方をまとめたガイドラインの策定などを実施いたします。
Specific supports include support for ASEAN countries in creation of roadmap towards carbon neutrality, which will be expanded to include India. We will also create a guideline that outlines our concept of finance for transition that reflects reality of Asia.
その上で足元のエネルギー市場の危機を踏まえれば、カーボンニュートラルに向けたトランジッション推進の基盤として、エネルギーの安定供給と市場の安定が重要です。
Against that backdrop, considering the current energy crisis, stable energy supply and market stability are critical as basis for promoting transition towards the carbon neutrality.
そのため、エネルギー源の多様化と供給源の多角化を一層進めるなど、エネルギーの自立性向上に取り組む必要があります。再エネ、省エネと並び、LNG も重要な役割を果たすエネルギー源として活用するとともに、原子力の活用も進めてまいります。
For that, we must engage in improving our energy independency through things such as further push for diversification of energy sources and supply. Together with renewables and energy efficiency, LNG must be utilized as a source of energy with an important role together with nuclear power.
最後に日本はクリーンエネルギー中心の経済、社会、産業構造へ転換し、脱炭素と経済成長の実現を加速すべく、水素やアンモニア、CCUS、カーボンリサイクルなどに関する一連の国際会議を今年の秋に開催する予定です。加えて今年の冬、水素の経済性やアンモニアのバリューチェーンに関して、各国と連携の上、日本が主導して対話の場をそれぞれ開催する予定です。日本としては、これらの機会を活用し、多様な道筋、イノベーションの創出、途上国へのエンゲージメントの3つの観点を世界に向けて発信をしてまいります。
Lastly, may I mention that Japan is planning on hosting a series of international conferences this fall on things such as hydrogen and ammonia, and CCUS and carbon recycling to further accelerate decarbonization and economic growth through transformation into clean energy-centered economy, society, and industry. Furthermore, in this matter, through collaboration with countries, Japan plans to take an initiative to host a place for dialogue on economic potential of hydrogen and ammonia value chain. Japan will utilize the opportunity to disseminate the three messages of diverse path, creation of innovations, and engagement of developing countries.
ご清聴ありがとうございました。Thank you so much.